So now let's move to the table of contents. As the very first topic, I have selected identifying a web domain for auditing. Then after that we move on to scanning for subdomains. After that we are doing some real-time demonstrations using Kali Linux based tools. Some of them are Nikto, Nessus, OpenVAS, SQLmap, WP Scan, Nmap, and redhawk version 2. Then we are going to discuss about the web application firewall detection using the WooF tool. Then we are going to discuss about the professional pen testing tools and web audit reports. Then finally we are going to move to conclusion and the references. So the vulnerable web domain I have selected is the paypal.com. I surfed a lot through these Hackerone BugBounty programs. Then I was able to find particular PayPal web domain under the directory tab in Hackerone. So as you can see here, we were able to find the following rewards offered by the PayPal. According to the PayPal, these PayPal brands are the things which are in scope. So we can run different kind of scans on those brands. Now let's move on to the scope of the web application. It is very much important to read and understand the scope of the particular web application. Here you have allowed to perform vulnerability analysis on in-scope vulnerabilities. So these are the in-scope vulnerabilities that you are allowed to scan, and there are some out-scope vulnerabilities too. So you are not legally permitted to perform vulnerability analysis on such vulnerabilities. In PayPal's BugBounty program, there is a special scope for mobile applications too. These are some of them, and there are in-scope and out-scope vulnerabilities. And also when submitting a bug report, there are several requirements that you need to fulfill. Some of them are full description of the vulnerability being reported, including the exploitability and impact, evidence and explanation of all steps required to produce the submission, such as videos, screenshots, exploit code, traffic logs, etc. Here it says a brief summary about the ownership of submissions, termination and confidentiality of the bug bounty program. So here is a summary and the bounty details about the particular target domains. So you can scan those subdomains in order to get a bounty on those things. So now let's move on for scanning for subdomains. In order to scan subdomains of a particular web domain, we use the tool sublister in Kali Linux. So first of all, you need to clone the sublister repository from the GitHub. So you need to search for it. So what you have to do is you need to just simply type git clone and then the URL of that repository. So likewise we can start the cloning process. So after it is completed, uh, you can run the tool without any issues. So first we need to go into that folder. In here, in order to run the tool, you have to uh, use the command. This is a Python program, so you have to write sublister .py. First of all, you need to move into that directory. So you can use the command cd sublister. In that folder, you need to run the Python file. So as you can see, the tool works, but you have to give additional arguments in order to scan for our targeted web domain. So what I'm going to do is, you can just run for help, run the help command to see all the commands you need. So in my case, I'm going to, in order to so providing the relevant web domain, I can find out the subdomains of the particular web domain. So you have to type sublister.py and then the argument as d and then the targeted web domain. So as you can see, it's now working on searching for the web domains. So this is taking some time. So as you can see, these are the all subdomains that this tool has found. So there are a huge number of subdomains. And then let's see the tool called host. By using the host tool in Kali Linux, you can find out the existing domain name servers of a particular web domain. Here we are using the technique called as zone transferring. So what we are do is type host in argument as t and then ns paypal.com. So these are the domain name servers in PayPal. and then by using the DNS lookup utility, or we call as dig, you are able to find out lot more information regarding the PayPal's DNS servers. So what you have to do is type dig and then the target web domain. So as you can see, these are the DNS servers in the PayPal. Then by using the DNS enum command, you are able to enumerate information on a web domain and discover non-contiguous IP blocks. So what you have to do is type DNS enum and then targeted web domain. So as I mentioned previously, this uses the technique called zone transferring. This is taking some time, so I'm going to stop this. Now let's move on to vulnerability discovery and analysis. In the field of cybersecurity, there are a considerable amount of tools which can be used to scan for web vulnerabilities. The first one we are going to discuss is called as Nikto. Nikto is a great tool which can be used to perform vulnerability analysis. So in order to run the Nikto tool, you can type Nikto then help, so you can find what are the commands you can use in this tool. So by providing the target hostname and the port number, we are able to do a vulnerability analysis on the particular web domain. So you can do it like this: type Nikto h then the target paypal.com and the port number. We are going to port number as 80. We are giving the port number as 80 because it's the HTTP. this should work. The first time I tried it worked, and it displayed the target IP, target host name, target port, message, start time, such details, and whether there is a banner and such details. Is for whatever reason it doesn't work at this moment. So now let's move on to the next tool we are going to use, and it's called Nessus. Nessus is a very powerful web penetration testing tool which is mostly used by professional pen testers. You can install Nessus by providing the following command. You have to type dpke package installer, then I. So by running this command you can install the downloaded Nessus tool. I'm not going to install it again because I have already done that. So in the terminal you need to provide the following command in order to start the Nessus service. So simply you just have to type service Nessus d start. Spelling mistake. So the service has started. After that, in your web browser, which is in my case it's Firefox, just type localhost and the port is 808834. So as you can see, it is initializing. So this is taking much time, so I will show you in my report I had done this. So you after you initialize the Nessus tool correctly, you get an interface like this, and you have to select Nessus Essentials. Except the necessary other all products are paid professional versions of Nessus. So after choosing the product, it's going to automatically update the signature database. In this process, it downloads the necessary plugins and compiles it together. So After updating the signature database, you need to provide the targets that you want to scan. So in this occasion, I'm going to use the paypal.com as my target. So in this image, you can see this is my basic network scan in paypal.com. So with the help of Nessus tool, we are able to find 17 vulnerabilities in paypal.com. Actually, they are about mostly giving the information about the vulnerabilities. So as you can see, info is given here. So there's important fact in here. Although the basic network scanning was done without any issues, the final report doesn't display the severity of those vulnerabilities. Only the information regarding the vulnerability is displayed as the output in this report. So now let's move on to our next tool, which is OpenVAS. In OpenVAS, Open Vulnerability Assessment System, or else OpenVAS, is also a free and open source web penetration tool just like Nessus. But unlike in Nessus, although we use the community version of OpenVAS in this occasion, we get the opportunity to experience almost all the features in the paid version. First of all, before starting working with the tool OpenVAS directly, first you need to do the initial configuration of the tool. So you have to just type OpenVAS and then setup. So after I have initially set up when I was doing first time testing for the first time. So at the end of the configuration process, it generates the username and password for the VAS account like this. You need to copy and paste this password in a text file because we need actually login credentials after some time. So after that, in our web browser, you need to provide the URL as localhost and the port number as 9392. Then you need to provide the correct user login credentials that we previously retrieved, which are the user admin username as admin and the password is this. So after successful login, you are able to see the dashboard of this OpenVAS. But in here there is one problem. So as you can see, there is an issue with the secinfo database. It always shows a pop-up error message saying that secinfo database is missing. Actually, I spent so many hours watching YouTube videos and surfing through different web forums in order to find a proper solution for this issue. This issue was raised by many people on those web forums too, but unfortunately I was not able to find a proper solution to fix the secinfo database missing issue. I tried many methods using the terminal. Not only that, I also created a shellcode in order to fix this problem. This is his shellcode. I found this from a YouTube channel. That person also had the same problem that I had, but none of those solutions actually were able to update the particular database. I guess that is some kind of fault with the web servers, because in the terminal it shows that the server network cannot be reached. I tried several times, but always it shows the same error message. So now let's move on to our next tool, which is SQL map. SQL map is also a great vulnerability assessment tool which is mostly used in identifying database related vulnerabilities. In here we are able to perform several SQL injection attacks on the host target as like this. So first of all you need to type SQL map, then the URL, type the parameters u, and then type the URL https. Here you need to provide the full URL. I use this Sri Lankan website because it automatically redirects to our local website, Sri Lankan website. So it does with the URL injections, the target URL is itself, so I give yes. So here you can see it says that the target is protected by some kind of WAF. WAF means web application firewall. We will come into that later. I'm going to discuss separately about web application firewalls. So here it asks whether you need to continue. Yes, I continue. Actually, Linux based tools are not that much powerful as the Windows tools, because these are created by individual people, so not like a team of developers. So we cannot get the maximum out of these Linux based tools. So we'll come into the Windows based professional pen testing tools later. So actually this takes some time, so we will stop it here. So the final output comes like this. I have done this previously. So it shows the critical, some things as critical, the SQL ingestion possible or not, and the reason for that. So now let's see, and also we can use the command sql map dash u, sql dash u, and then our target. We use this command to retrieve tables from the target web server, but in PayPal their web server is secured in many different ways against SQL injection attacks, but however we will try. So I told you before that this PayPal.com servers web application use web application firewall, and this is the name of that web application firewall. So when attacking those web servers, there are it pops out many problems such as it blocks our IP address and such things. We will discuss it later. Those Linux based tools actually gives only some basic amount of information. There is no a beautiful interface such as graphs and charts likewise, but in Windows based tools you actually can use those tools and draw graphs, charts, etc. So I'm going to quit this because it takes a lot of time. So the next tool we are going to use is WP scan. Actually WP scan is the greatest web application vulnerability scanning tools out there, but WordPress scan, the only downside of this tool is only the web domains which are designed using WordPress can be scanned by this tool. That's the only downside of this tool. You can see the commands that can be used in WP scan by typing WP scan and help. So these are the commands that you can we can use options. So if you are not sure whether your target web domain is running on WordPress or not, you can test it here. Just simply type wp scan and then URL and then the full URL you need to provide. So as you can see, it says that it asks whether to update. We will know. Seems like it taking too much time, so I will show you in my report. So when you use that command, it shows that it's kind of aborted. The remote website is up but does not seem to be running on WordPress. So you can get sure that this web, the paypal.com is not running on WordPress. Here it has come. The remote website is up but does not seem to be running on WordPress. So the next tool we are going to use is Nmap. Nmap is usually considered as the most vulnerability analysis tool, which is very popular among the professionals. Not only that, Nmap is very much useful, especially in scanning for vulnerabilities of a particular web application. First of all, let's see what systems are alive using the Nmap tool. So you have to type Nmap, then sp, then the target name. Here you need to use capital P. So now let's check for the open ports in our target host. So to do that, just type nmap is capital T, in port numbers for HTTP is 80 and for HTTPS is 443, and then the target IP address, which is 64.4.250.37. We actually found this in somewhere up here, the IP address of the PayPal servers. So as you can see, it shows us the open ports and the service. With the help of Nmap, we are able to detect currently running OS of the targeted web server. In order to do that, you can type Nmap, then capital O, then the target name. So as you can see, so these are the guesses actually it does these operating systems. So now let's try to perform some aggressive scanning operations such as version detection, script scanning and traceroute on paypal.com. In order to do that, you need to type nmap and /a, then the target domain web domain name. So it gives the version which is using by the PayPal servers. So now let's move on scanning the host for vulnerabilities with the help of some automated scripts. In order to do that, just type nmap and then script. This is actually a repository. You can search it in your web browser. It has some scripts that we can use for attacks, some commonly used passwords and such things, etc. So now let's move on to our final tool which we are going to use using the Kali Linux, and it is called as redhawk version 2. Redhawk can be considered as an all-in-one information gathering tool and a vulnerability scanner for Kali Linux. This is also one of the most powerful web trolling tools out there, especially in Kali Linux. This comes under the field of reconnaissance. Now let's see how to install it and use it. So as the very first step, you need to clone the redhawk git repository. So just type redhawk. This is it, and what you can do is just copy this URL and go to the terminal and type git clone and just paste the URL and press git. I think I have installed it previously. I have installed, so I'm not going to install that again. So you can just simply type this command in order to install from the repository. So after cloning the repository, you just simply need to launch the PHP based redhawk tool. There is no installation process for this particular tool. Just simply go into that redhawk folder. And you have to type PHP or and just press enter. So as you can see, this is the interface of the tool. This is how it looks like. So in here you need to input your target web domain, and in my case it's paypal.com. Then you need to define whether the particular web domain is based on HTTP or HTTPS. So the website I'm going to scan is paypal.com, and the HTTPS it tells us to give 2. So now you are able to see the list of scans or actions that can be performed on that particular specified target. So now let's check one by one and how to do those scans on our target web domain. First of all, let's do a basic reconnaissance. It gives us about site title, IP address, CMS, Cloudflare detection, that means the firewall we are using, and the robot.txt scanner. So what you do is just simply give this number is 0. So it gives the IP address of the paypal.com. So the web server, it shows that the web server PayPal is using is called Varnish. And now let's see about whether it's using Cloudflare or any other type of vulnerability analysis firewall, web application firewall. So as you can see, there is no Cloudflare is used. So to define the target again, this time we are going to look for the subnet calculator. So in order to do that, just type number 5. So I'm going to continue Control C. I'm going to Control C, stop here. So as you can see, these are the subnets, and we can move on furthermore also. So now let's try to this ninth one, which is an SQL scanner. It finds links with parameter and scans for errors based SQLi. So just simply give 9. And then let's see how to crawl in this tool. In order to crawl, you crawl the number of is 12. Actually these tools doesn't give us much details. So now let's move on to some interesting topic, which is the web application firewall detection. Web application firewall detection is the mitigation procedure that is implemented within the web servers in order to protect web applications from attacks. So what this firewall basically does is it blocks the different kinds of attacks which are reached to the server. So when performing an exploitation, firstly you need to encode the data in a specific way to bypass the firewall, otherwise it will be blocked by the firewall, so that the request won't be processed by the server. If a particular web application uses this firewall, first we need to detect this firewall using the tool called WAF woof. We call it WAF woof. So you can run that tool by using WAF and W00F. So as you can see, you can type your target web domain in here. You need to type the full URL. Actually sometimes this tool cannot identify the firewall, but sometimes it works. The previous times I tried, it only identified the firewall for only very few times. This time it didn't work, so let's try it again. Actually this tool can sometimes identify it and sometimes it fails to identify the name of the web application firewall. So in my document I will show you. So it should actually output a result like this. This site paypal.com is behind Kona Site Defender. Actually this is the name of the web application firewall. here it has come. Sometimes actually this result won't display most of the time like in this previous occasion, but luckily this time it worked. So as you can see above, the paypal.com is behind Kona Site Defender web application firewall. So most of the attacks or manipulation of data will be blocked for certainly. So we won't get the response we wanted. So now let's see how to get a vscan done without getting our IP blocked. So actually there are three methods. The first one is you can either use a VPN. It will actually hide our IP address and encrypts your connection and routes it through an intermediary server in other location. Or else you can either use the web browser which is called Tor, T-O-R. This will encrypt our request and encrypt our internet connection and routes it through a random sequence of servers. And the third and the final solution, which is the easiest one, is reduce the throughput of the request sent per second. Actually, I'm in the future slides. In the future, I'm going to demonstrate this by reducing the throughput of the request sent per second. By using any of these three methods, actually you can bypass the web application firewall of a particular web domain. So now let's move on to professional pen testing tools and web audit reports. So now we are done with the Linux based web application pen testing tools. So I'm going to close this. So actually I have used two professional softwares in order to do this pen testing process and creating web audit reports. The first tool is the Netsparker Professional Edition, and the next one is Acunetix Professional Premium Edition. So let me open this for you. So it takes some time to start. So by that time I will give some introduction about this Netsparker Professional Edition. First of all, I should mention that the original Netsparker Professional Edition costs more than $660 per month. So as I'm unable to afford such expense, I have downloaded and installed the cracked full Netsparker Professional Edition for free. To be honest, I spent several hours on studying how to install this cracked version because it contains almost all the professional web pen testing features. Netsparker is a fully automated web application security scanner which allows its users to perform huge variety of tasks on a particular targeted website. So this is the tool that I said. Actually, this is the lifetime activated track version. This is very much expensive tool. You have to pay about $660 per month. So in this tool there are many important features. Some of those important features are you can scan the targeted website and then identify its security flaws, attack and exploiting the vulnerabilities, advanced scrolling and auditing mechanism, and then finally generating industry standard audit reports. So now let's move on directly for scanning our targeted web domain. So until it loads, I loaded. So here, as you can see, I have completed my scan. First, I will explain it using this report. It will be easy for you to understand. So in here, you can define your target, specific target. Go to a new, and then go to a new scan like this, and give your target website or web service URL. So there are many options like scan policy, report policy, custom to scrolling, and many other scope, additional website, and lot of more features for you to configure customly. So as I mentioned previously, Netsparker Professional Edition consists with huge number of services. As you can see in this image, after defining our target website, we need to define the scan policy. In this software, it has provided us with many scan policy options to be selected. But as our lecturer in charge, Dr. Lakmal Rupasinghe mentioned, I am going to choose the scan policy as OWASP top 10 checks. After completing this stage, we need to move on for defining the scope. As this web scanner is capable of scanning the whole web domain at once, I had decided to choose that option. Not only that, this option is surely going to be very useful, especially in generating the final reports on that particular web domain. So you can see that I have selected whole the domain because it's easy rather than just selecting one subdomain at a time, because there are a huge number of subdomains. So this tool automatically scan all the subdomains for us. So usually before scanning a particular web domain, a pen tester should get written permissions from the owner of that website. Otherwise, it is considered as a criminal offense or else as a cybercrime. But as I have mentioned in the previous section, most of the today's web servers are protected by firewalls. Most of the e-commerce related websites use multiple firewalls to protect their web servers against cyber attacks. So in my case, PayPal also use such kind of firewalls in order to protect their web servers from the attackers. Usually when a pen tester scans a particular web domain in a legal manner, his IP address is whitelisted by the firewall. But if anyone who does this without any kind of written permission, his IP address is surely going to be blocked. So to be honest, this thing happened to me for several times. My IP address got blacklisted several times due to this attacking process. But after performing a small research by myself, I was able to find a proper solution for this. I had decided to limit the throughput of the request towards the targeted web domain. I have chosen to send 2 requests per second towards the target web domain. By applying this method, I was able to successfully bypass PayPal's web application firewall without getting my IP address blacklisted. So yeah, as you can see, I have given the number of requests which are sent to the target web server is 2. If it exceeds more than 2, if it's 3 also, it blocks our IP address. 2 is the maximum. we cannot exceed the limit, otherwise our IP address will be get blocked. So we have to stop the scan and change our IP by disconnecting and reconnecting and try it again. So actually this scanning process took more than time I thought. Actually it took for me 4 days, 96 long hours of scanning process, and it finally came into an end. So here is it. Actually this ended today. It sent huge number of total requests towards the targeted web domain, and here are some site map and the issues that are found, and you can actually do lot of things in this tool. You can create reports and other such many things. We will come into that later. So after that you get the opportunity to generate a report type as you wish, but here I am going to use the OWASP Top 10 2017 report structure. In here the software provides us the chance to export the report in both HTML and PDF formats. So I will be publishing the web vulnerability audit report as an attachment as both HTML and PDF files with the document in a zip file. Additionally, for the better understanding of the specific vulnerabilities, I have included the following report types as well inside the zip file. The main thing is OWASP Top 10 2017 report. Other than that, I have included detailed scan report, executive summary report, and SANS Top 10 report additionally. So before we start discussing about the report that I generated, let's move on to the second tool that I have used to scan our target web domain. So like in the previous scenario, Acunetix Premium Edition costs more than $400 per month. Although the community editions and standard editions of the tools are available for free, they don't provide us the necessary web crawling and auditing services that we actually need. So the only remaining solution for me was to download and install the cracked version of Acunetix Premium Edition. Like I have mentioned previously, installing cracked software is not a very easy task. I had to try several times reinstalling the web software in order to work it properly. Acunetix is an automated web application security pen testing tool that can do both auditing and crawling by checking the vulnerabilities such as cross-site scripting, which is called as SS, and SQL injection, etc. This tool uses a special and a very unique technology called Acute Sensor technology to identify more vulnerabilities than the other web application scanners. Not only that, Acunetix Premium Edition generates only a very few false positives. So when compared to other web application scanners, Acunetix can be trusted to a greater extent. When compared to other web application scanners, Acunetix consists with more advanced and very useful features such as high vulnerability detection rate with 0% of false positives, identify and testing hidden inputs which are not discovered during black box testing, scanning and prioritizing and classifying the detected issues. Advanced crawling and auditing mechanisms enables to crawl JavaScript websites and SPAs, generating industry standard custom audit reports. So as the very first step, you need to define the target domain in the provided text area. So I will demonstrate you. Actually there's an issue. I cannot open that tool. I will describe you why I'm not opening that. So actually the interface is look like this. So as the very first step, you need to define the target domain in the provided text area, which is in my case is paypal.com. Then you need to set the scanning speed as you wish. But in order to bypass the web application firewall, I'm choosing a slower scan speed, which is one concurrent request per second, which I have done in the Netsparker tools. In the same way, I'm going to use this tool as well. Then under the choose scanning option tab, we need to select the report type that we need as the final output. So in here I'm going to choose the OWASP Top 10 2017 standard for the report. So there are several options other than this. Actually, the issue that I have told you is I cannot open this tool because soon after I started this tool, my computer stuck immediately. Actually, I have started the scan, and whenever I go to this tool, my PC began to stuck because of the less RAM. At the very first time I hit the create scan button, this got stuck, and I honestly tried several times to run this scan, and I several times I run this scan after resetting my laptop each and every time. Actually, unfortunately, the RAM of my laptop was unable to handle such a heavy workload. Each and every time I press the start scan, RAM usage rises up to the maximum level, and then suddenly the system gets stuck completely. So whenever I start this tool, my computer gets stuck. That's why I'm not going to open this. I have tried several times, and all the times it happens like that. So unfortunately, I was unable to generate a vulnerability audit report by using this powerful tool. But however, I was successful on generating a web vulnerability audit report by using the tool Netsparker. So now let's finally move on to the conclusion and the references. So after a long 96 hours of scanning process, it finally came to an end. Usually PayPal is considered as one of the most trusted and the safest online financial services out there. A person can just simply add his or her bank account, credit card or debit card details whenever transferring money using PayPal. There are plenty of other popular online payment mechanisms out there such as Apple Pay, Samsung Pay and Google Pay, etc. But if we consider about PayPal, it offers more benefits to its customers when related to other payment options. Not only that, PayPal is very much famous among the world for its unique security. Currently, PayPal uses more advanced AI-based security mechanisms in order to protect their customers' trust and money. However, as we all know, each and every software or web application in the world have its own loopholes. Developing a perfectly 100% secured software is not possible task at all. Although one day if developers created such a product, attackers are surely going to find vulnerabilities of it and exploit it. So to be honest, before scanning PayPal's web application, I also strongly believe that PayPal is a very much secure web application in the world which is impenetrable for attackers. But soon after seeing the final web vulnerability audit report, I realized that I was completely wrong. The final summary report proved that HTTPS this PayPal.com is a web application which acquires a risk level of medium. So as you can see in the report, it shows as medium. Actually, I can show you the report that I have generated. Actually, there are audit reports. Actually, two types, which is HTML files, and you can go inside the hyperlinks in there. But when it converts to PDF, you cannot go inside those hyperlinks. So as I said in previously, I have rather than the OWASP top 10 PDF, I have created additionally 3 more report types in order to get a better understanding. So let's first open OWASP top 10. So as you can see, it has the risk level of medium. So this is the time actually it takes 4 days. This is 3 days and 20 hours, almost 4 days. And the average speed is 1.9 requests per second. So if I exceed this limit, it's surely going to block my IP address. So I have to be very careful when by limiting my requests per second. So as I have mentioned you previously, with the Netsparker Professional Edition, I generated different kinds of web vulnerability reports. So according to the standards of the particular reports, it displayed different counts of vulnerabilities. For example, in OWASP 2013 and 2017, both reports it generated 65 vulnerabilities, and in the standard ISO 27001, it displayed found 81 vulnerabilities likewise. So as you can see in the above image, OWASP Top 10 2017 classification does not display all the vulnerabilities that the tool was able to find out. The total number of 17 vulnerabilities are not shown in the OWASP Top 10 standard report. We need to look at the detailed scan report in order to identify the vulnerabilities, including the hidden ones. So as you can see, it says there are 17 vulnerabilities that are not shown below, because in this standard it's the way those vulnerabilities are not shown in this standard report. So as you can see in this image, see these diagrams and charts and information. It was able to identify total number of 65 vulnerabilities. Among those, 56 vulnerabilities are considered as medium level risk vulnerabilities. There is total number of 5 low level risk vulnerabilities in our targeted web application. So although we like it or not, PayPal has a major security flaw in their web application. Netsparker web application security scanner used many advanced attacking and payload injection mechanisms in order to identify vulnerabilities. So most of the vulnerabilities were found out by using the attack mechanisms such as cross-site scripting and SQL injection. So as you can see, most of these are based on cross-site scripting. So here are the impact of these excesses, such as hijacking user active session, changing the look of the page within the victim's browser, mounting a successful phishing attack, intercepting data, and performing man-in-the-middle attacks. Not only that, this tool was able to find out the web application is vulnerable to breach attacks also. Actually, even if you use an SSL TLS protected connection, an attacker can still view the victim's encrypted traffic and cause the victim to send HTTP requests to the vulnerable web server using invisible frames. So you can follow these steps in order to prevent from those attacks, such as inject partially plain text uncovered into a victim's request, measure the size of the encrypted traffic, such things. And then the Netsparker detected the weak ciphers are enabled during the secure connection. All those come under the medium severity level vulnerabilities. Then let's come to the low level severity vulnerabilities. Some of them are internal IP address disclosure and the cookie not marked as HTTP only. Some of the web cookies that are used in the PayPal web application are identified for not marking as HTTP only, so that the attackers get the opportunity to write and read the client-side malicious scripts. Not only that, Netsparker was able to find out an internal IP address disclosure also. So now let's move our attention to the other types of low level vulnerabilities. Some of them are missing X-frame option header, misconfigured access control allow origin header, etc. Some of those vulnerabilities have direct and major impact on the security of the web application. It is displayed in red dot as critical, then high is a red flag, medium is yellow flag, and low is some kind of orange. So although the critical level and high severity level impacts cannot be found, there is still a considerable amount of medium level severity vulnerabilities. So now let's move on to some medium level and low level vulnerabilities and the suggested solutions to prevent from attacks. So these are the vulnerabilities that it has detected and the suggested solutions you can implement in order to prevent from those attacks. So I hope that those proofs are more than enough to realize that there is major security flaw in the PayPal's web application. I strongly believe that with the time passed by, those vulnerabilities might get fixed by the necessary authorities. So this is the end of my web audit process on the PayPal's web domain.